What will happen if something that has marked its own path for the past years was wrapped up in a slip away? What if all your used to suddenly vanished apart? Would you be the same? We live under constant change. We change our ideologies, customs, and behaviors on and on. Think about it. Since the first day an organism stepped on the Earth planet, everything has evolved. We're here to give you an idea of what has happened for the recent past years, but let us warn you. As you may know, there is always two sides of the story. Your eyes will witness the wound and the pain the world has suffered. But they will also witness progress, aid, and most of all, faith in humanity. Let's get on to one of the most intense flashbacks you will ever experience in a lifetime. It's time to travel back to the 20th century. Are you ready?
In a strict way, the 20th century started in the year 1901. However, we will start in Europe in the year 1914 with the assassination of the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, the unexpected successor to the throne of Austria. The one who ignited the tensions created by Austria after annexing Bosnia-Herzegovina to its territory, marking the beginning of World War I. People die, emperors disappear, but this terrifying event ended up with the signing of Treaty of Versailles, which consisted on Germany giving an end to the war and paying all damages. Of course, Germany was not the only one affected. Russia, for example, the country at the hands of Nicholas II, the last star of the Russian that has led revolutionary movements in the famous revolution, was doing two battles at a time, one inside the country, revolutionary movements, and another one outside, World War I, giving birth to the Revolution of 1917, in which Lenin, one of the Marxist leaders in Russia, who was part of the Russian Social Democratic Labour Party, ended the Tsar regime and took control of the government, leaving World War I for a great cost.
Of course, we are not forgetting about the countries in the rest of the world, such as ones in America. Remember that countries like Mexico were living tough moments? The Mexican Revolution was one of them, and it began in 1910. A political, economical, and social movement led by Francisco I. Madero, Mexico's president, that started with the desire of peasants and workers to get their lands and rights back. This led to Aguascalientes Convention, taking place in 1914. This convention was called by Venustiano Carranza, the most important leader at the end of this revolution, in order to reconcile the differences between Zapata, Villa, Carranza himself, and Obregón. Finally, many will end this event with the signature of the Constitution of 1917. And what about US? Well, the truth is that this country entered World War I, and even though it was almost at the end of it, made a difference. We cannot forget that US had been making an effort to avoid European issues, as it showed after the war with the Great Depression in 1929, in which Franklin D. Roosevelt, the president that took US in his shoulders during this event, promoted an economical policy New Deal, that searched for the good of the Americans.
Now our journey will move towards the Asian continent. Before World War I took place in Europe, countries as China were living their own problems. The local revolution in China was a successful movement that finally ended with the dynasty's reign. But then a new head of state was established, so Sun Yat-sen became the first president of the country. After a decade of this event, the Communist Party was founded, and when the invasion from Japan to occupy Manchuria occurred, Mao Zedong, a pro-communism guy, easily defeated Sun Yat-sen's pupil Jiang Jieshi, who was against communism, and became the leader of the country. To show the support that people offered him, he made a historical event that was called the Long March.
Now let's go back to Europe. Do you remember that World War I ended with the Treaty of Versailles? Well, this treaty gave birth to the World War II with the help of totalitarian leaders like Francisco Franco, a dictator of Spain that led at the beginning of the Spanish Civil War in 1936 until 1939 when it arrived to an end, and Adolf Hitler, the main leader of the Nazist Party. This resulted with the beginning of another international movement that ended with US support after the attack performed by the Japanese in Pearl Harbor in 1941. But was that all? The truth is that after World War II another conflict began, the Cold War. This period of tension characterized by the rivalry between communism and capitalism, with acts like the construction of the Berlin Wall in 1961, a representation of the brutality of communism, or the Berlin Airlift, an example of liberty of capitalism, in which we were able to see cruel leaders like Fidel Castro, the dictator of Cuba that supported USSR, or Joseph Stalin, the last totalitarian leader that represented communism himself, but also aspirational ones like young American president that survived the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962, but not a bullet during his assassination in the year of 1963. However, we cannot forget the good things that happened in the world. Presidents like Lázaro Cárdenas in Mexico were giving back their country its autonomy by the events like the oil expropriation of 1938.
We may think sometimes that Asian countries were the least important of them all, but let there be no confusion that these cities suffer as much as the rest of Europe and America. For starters, we have the Sino-Japanese War of 1937, which was a sort of a Cold War thingy between China and Japan. The only difference is that they actually attacked each other. This war was an effort to keep Japanese influence out of China. But the funny thing is that after the revolution of China that ended dynasties, the last emperor ever, Puji, went on to rule over Manchuria, Japan. So we think that when it comes to power, there are no rules. You can say that Japan obtained karma for its sins, but in a way that no mankind had ever seen. The dropping of US atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Above all of this, there was still hope and inspiration going on in Asia thanks to the legacy of Mahatma Gandhi. He's one of the most iconic figures of the 20th century, and one of his achievements was leading India's independence with not violent movements. A year after this, Israeli and its independence will get a cost, the First Arab-Israeli War, which still causes a lot of troubles in the present. But let us not forget that the People's Republic of China was made, and finally made it easier to name the country. But with this, it was also created the Red Army, which is believed to be founded by Shu De. This was made to fight the nationalists and give all support to communism. So long for People's Republic.
The next years of the war were mainly peace. In Europe, we were able to see new eras, like the first women prime minister in England with Margaret Thatcher, and Queen Elizabeth, the British rule that continued until today. We also see the end of the Cold War with the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, leading to the German reunification in 1990, having as leader Richard von Weizsäcker, the president that restored German reputation and the one of the USSR in 1991, thanks to the efforts of Mikhail Gorbachev, the first democratically elected president in Russia. Finally, we were able to see the integration of the continent in the creation of the European Union in 1992. Asia was not behind. In 1978, Japan and China signed the peace treaty, ending with the years of rebuilding. Great leaders like Mother Teresa and Aung San Suu Kyi, the one that won the Nobel Prize of Peace in 1991, were recognized by their humanitarian work. Also, Pacific political changes like Hong Kong reverting to China and the ascension of great leader Kim Il-sung to the head of the North Korean government took place. Finally, as the European alliance was formed, the Shanghai Five, the one that unified the major powers of the continent. And as the other continents, America was also in the process. Most of the negative events that occurred in this time, except from the Just Cause operation by the US in 1990, were accidents, like the nuclear accident in the 3 Mile Island, or the earthquake of 1985 in Mexico, or the Vargas tragedy in 1999. Finally, as in the other continents, unification treaties were also signed, like the NAFTA in the year of 1994 by the Canadian Prime Minister, the Mexican President Carlos Salinas de Gortari, who modernized the country, the American President George Bush, the successor of Ronald Reagan.
We saw the events that occurred in the 20th century have modeled the society in which we live today. In Europe, we are still able to see the European Union, the one that today has become an important economic, political, and cultural power. In Asia, today we have the result of the disputes that began between the US and the Arabs after World War II. While in America, we can see that even though in the last year the relationship between Cuba and United States improved, they still have a strong line of division that was created in the Cuban Missile Crisis. At the end, we can see that Africa, the prosperous continent that was forming itself with economic support gained in the Cold War, today lives in hunger and poverty thanks to the lack of support that started after the end of this conflict. As we said, our reality has been formed by the history before us, so let's make it less bloody and more happy, because we are the new generation, we are the new legacy, we are the future.
Created using Powtoon.